Hello everyone, it is TooAwesome here with another video. This video will contain spoilers, but I will give you a warning before they happen, so don't worry. But it is just crazy to think that it's been a year since I've had this channel, and my goal of 100 subscribers has been met as of the time making this script, and I'm just so overjoyed. So seriously, expect a 100 subscriber special really soon. But anyway, I honestly can't believe that I am making a review of the sequel to the first movie I've ever reviewed on this channel. Wow, that was a mouthful, but I saw Endgame on Thursday, technically the day of release, and I've postponed this long enough. So, without further ado, let's review Avengers Endgame. So personally, this movie was good. I don't think I liked it quite as much as I did Infinity War, but it still was a really good time. It was exactly what it had to be, an epic conclusion to an epic movie and cinematic universe. It was satisfying and had many heartfelt moments and scenes, and even before the Marvel logo came onto the screen, we got one of the most chilling scenes I have ever watched. Before the movie even started, the table had been set. We knew what we were in for. The first act sort of had a post-apocalyptic feel, and I thought that was really cool. I really love seeing the Avengers struggle to cope with their failures, and each of them blaming themselves for the events that transpired. Most of these scenes were amazing. Some of the character moments in these scenes were absolutely stunning. But remember that I said most, and when I say that, I mean some of the character struggles and sadness doesn't seem fully fleshed out or isn't conveyed in a meaningful or real way. We will come back to this later in the spoiler section. But personally, I think the section of the movie dragged on in particular in some scenes, and some people are claiming that this movie doesn't even feel close to 3 hours and how they didn't notice, but that couldn't be farther from the truth for me. The first act is mostly to blame for this, but to add to this, they also add some unnecessary jokes. Fortnite. But they also drag some scenes on that really don't need to be. Personally, once the point of a scene is conveyed or is brought to your attention, the scene should end. Sometimes less is more, and I think I stand by this in this movie. I think they could have honestly shaved off a good 10 minutes if they didn't drag on or keep some scenes going for longer than they needed to be. But not only did the scenes drag on and some of the jokes did as well. Personally, I think the jokes were really hit or miss in this movie, and even if they did hit, sometimes they dragged them on until they were stripped of any humor that it had to begin with, and I think that is really unfortunate because this is almost in direct contrast to Infinity War, in which some of the jokes are still funny to me even though I've watched the movie way too many times to count. Not to say that all the jokes in this movie were bad, I'm just making a statement that they were a lot fewer and farther between than they were in Infinity War. Also, on the topic of Infinity War, where was the orchestra in Endgame? I know some people loved it and thought it was amazing, and that is honestly great for them, but I couldn't even remember if there was a score or not. That's how forgetful it was. Only appearing in the major scenes and plot twists, which is also a shame because the music was one of the best things about Infinity War, and to see it leave like that just seems like a step backward for me. And I think the same thing happened to the cinematography and color palette as well. The cinematography in Infinity War was amazing and was shot as some epic must-see adventure, while Endgame does have its moments of this. It mostly relies on some pretty basic shots and over-the-shoulder camera angles for most of the movie. The same thing happened with the color palette. For Infinity War, it was vibrant and colorful, and each location had a distinct look and color palette, while in this movie, I feel myself a little bored looking at a lot of the grays they used. And this is totally understandable for the first act, since the story conveys a more somber tone at the beginning, but maybe the final fight could have used a little bit more color instead of the rubble and dirt that we were given. But I think that will be the last time I will compare this movie to Infinity War, and I really don't want it to sound like I hate this movie because that couldn't be farther from the truth. I just want to point out minor inconsistencies and issues I had with the movie, because to be fully honest, this movie was made by people who actually care, which is shown in some of the callbacks and jokes that are made. This movie was definitely an epic conclusion that played out just as you would expect, maybe a little too much. What I mean by that was that the story was a little predictable. The scenes weren't. Alright, let me explain. Personally, after the big plot twist at the beginning of the movie, the story moved just as you would expect it to. Ultimately, you knew the destination, but not the way you would get there. You knew where the story was going to end and the conclusion to each of the scenes, but the scenes themselves kept you guessing on how and why you would get there. Which is really cool, but personally, I don't think that was the best thing this movie had to offer. If I'm going to be honest, this movie is pretty messy. It's, at least story-wise. But where it really shines is in its character development and the little conversations we get from it. Because, like I said before, some of the characters were really believable, but the dialogue that came out of these scenes was some of the best we have ever gotten. It was perfect, and I would actually much rather have tons of character development instead of some action to fill the time. Not saying that action is bad, but for the first act of the movie, the character development was really needed. But even if it did stay too long in some places. But with that, I'm going to go into spoilers, so please skip to the time on the screen for the score and conclusion. Okay, 3, 2, 1. First of all, the third act was amazing. Everything, the action, the callbacks, the humor, the characters and scenes were absolutely insane. I don't think I have ever heard a crowd cheer so loud as when Captain America calls for Mjolnir and fights Thanos. Honestly, I couldn't help myself for having such a big goofy grin on my face. I just can't believe that this movie juggled so much and still was as fun as it was. It started out with a cool samurai one-shot scene, then was a post-apocalyptic story, then became a time-traveling heist, which then molded into an epic battle of the ages. This movie was amazing. There were so many moments that were just as awe-inspiring as the Captain America scene I mentioned before, such as the "I am Iron Man," then the snap, or Captain America's final ending, or even at the beginning when Tony was playing paper football with Nebula, just set this movie apart with its care and development put into it. Also, I love the scene with the older Captain America. It just felt so rewarding to me, and just makes sense. After all his work was done and he finished what he started, he went back to live out his life, and I thought that was really sweet. Same thing goes for Iron Man's funeral. The ending it gave to characters we loved just felt so satisfying. If it was Black Widow, Iron Man, or even Captain America, it was rewarding. It gave great send-offs to characters that we all loved, and I just have a few more complaints. Then I will give this movie its score since I hate to keep dragging it. First of all, I think Captain Marvel was a little OP, and I really didn't feel like she needed help from all the other female heroes when she just blew up Thanos' ship. It just doesn't seem like a few nameless goons would be a big deal for her. Also, at the beginning of the movie, she says that she's sad that Nick Fury died, but we don't actually see her grieving or do anything, to be honest. Like I said before, some characters actually seem sad in a real way, and unlike them, Carol Danvers was not one of them. Number 2, I really didn't like Thor in this movie. I get that he was fat and all, but just using him as comic relief seems off to me. It feels like a big step backwards for a character that has gotten so much development as of recently, especially in Ragnarok and Infinity War. Also, I know I said this before, but the way Black Widow dies almost feels a little empty, and I know I said it was rewarding, but I think I kind of have mixed feelings, because the way the story was set up, it felt like her death didn't matter, but when in reality it was concrete, so I just felt like she wasn't truly gone, but that may have just been me. And number 4, is it 4? I don't know, maybe 3. Who knows anymore. I know some people really like this joke, but honestly, it had me cringing in my seat. I know I don't like to use the word cringe, but honestly, I think it applies. The time Korg was playing Fortnite and was having an argument with Noob Master 69 wasn't that funny and was just bad. They honestly brought back Korg to life after when I thought he was dead, just to play Fortnite. Man, that baffles me. But other than that, that's it. No other complaints from me, really. That's it. I love this movie. It's really good. Although this movie isn't perfect by any means and feels a little bit messy, it was a fantastic finale and did its job at ending an amazing and ongoing story. It did everything it needed to and more, and had some of the best performances and character development I have ever seen in a Marvel movie. This movie will truly go down in history and is a must-see even for people who don't usually like this kind of stuff. Avengers Endgame gets a 9 out of 10. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps a lot more than you know. But as always, stay awesome. Too awesome. Thanks for watching.